Welcome to the Nausea River podcast. I'm Theo Morgan, and it was an unusually balmy October 19th. My trip to Medford, walking along an ugly strode until I reached the center of town, paid off quicker than I expected. The looming sense of loneliness and despair lifted quickly in the tight quarters of deep cuts. Make one nice comment on someone's vest, and suddenly you're sharing a basket of fries 3 ways before the show starts. And for the record, deep cuts are some of my favorite fries. You've heard about this show. A lot. I can't help it. There's a lot of camaraderie and kindness in the Boston music scene that I've slowly been uncovering. It's the family that was waiting for me to return home. Or maybe taking my business cards to the path of least resistance that keeps things from getting too violent. But there's something about the gloomy side of the scene that brings us closer together. When doom metal, post rock, and genre misfits congregate and realize there are a dozen people like them, it's easy to talk there, and I wasn't that intimidated when Liz approached me in my salt crusted hands. I had no idea what this would lead to, besides her selling the business card once I got famous.
Can we start that over?
We can start over. I'm
Okay.
Theo. Who are you?
I'm Liz Walshak. I am a local Boston musician and I play in Vivid Bloom, C, and now filling in Glacier.
Meet Liz Walshak. I've credited her as Liz Doom on this podcast before, and to be fair, her bands do as well. Between C and Vivid Bloom and an increasing number of guest spots for Glacier and just being at shows, she's a fixture of wherever I find myself. It would be exciting enough with that alone, but Vivid Bloom's recently announced spot at Boston Calling this year pushed me over the edge. There's a lot we talked about. Some of it is indeed very silly. Starting with my usual questions, where did you start musically?
Like my musician origin
Yeah,
story.
exactly.
Um, okay, all right. Well, I guess so I grew up with, like, young rocker parents who were, like, young in the '80s, and, I grew up with MTV, watching music videos and all this stuff, so I feel like that kinda planted the seed. I started playing guitar when I was 14, briefly took lessons, but it didn't stick, and honestly, I think my family couldn't really afford it at the time. And I really wanted to start a band. I was super into, like, Nine Inch Nails and Hole and, Metallica,
Hmm.
but I didn't know many peers that went to my school who, like, played th or who liked the same kind of music because it was during the, like, late '90s, early aughts when, like, pop punk was becoming a big thing.
Hmm.
I just, like, was I didn't have enough serotonin in my brain for that. I was, like, really into goth music and, like, industrial and metal.
Hmm.
Um, so I kinda just, like, shelved playing music for a while, and it wasn't until my early 20s where I started getting back into guitar. Um I got really into the band Mastodon, and this was the era of, Guitar Pro 5 and 6, if anybody knows that, but it was a great learning tool because I used to, find these tabs online and they were always wrong, and I didn't have any, like, training, so I couldn't actually level up my skills. So, once like Guitar Pro 5 was there, you can actually it was basically you have the tab, you have the MIDI version of the song, and you could like play along. And if there's a guitar solo, you could highlight a section and slow it down and speed it up. So I just started playing, and I got super into trying to play all my favorite parts of these Mastodon songs. And then basically, I thought I was too old to have started a band by then, because the few people I did know, they all were doing it like in their teens, and I was in my early 20s, and I was like, I'm old. Like, if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen, which is ridiculous now. But I guess at the time I felt that way. So then I remember I volunteered for this organization, Girls Rock Camp Boston. And have you heard of it?
I have. This is going to be embarrassing, but it's because they would do a lot of charity beers with local breweries. It was always like the pink ones.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a part of my life. That's something that's not a part of my life anymore. I'm just like, oh yeah, the dragon fruit beer from my local brewery.
Hey, if whatever catches the eye and gets
Yeah.
people intrigued,
So
I
I've
guess.
yeah, so I've contributed however many pints I bought.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so their very first year launching that in Boston, I volunteered, and there was this orientation during the first day, and at the time it was like an all like female identifying, so to speak, kind of uh organization. Like that was kind of the mission, is like we need this space to be musicians where we don't have like gatekeeping basically. So I just remember being surrounded by all of these amazing women who were like, I started a band when I was 40, 50, 60. And I was like, oh, why do I think I'm too old? This is silly. So after that, I basically was like, I'm gonna form a band. And um I ended up forming two bands. One was called Razumov, and that was like a stoner metal, stoner rock band that formed in 2011. And then I formed another band called Surfs Up Spicoli, that was a surf rock band where I just learned how to play the drums by getting drunk and sitting behind the kit. Um, so yeah, that was sort of my beginning into playing in bands. And then in 2014, my partner Mike and I started C. And and then in 2021, I think, I met Erica Hansen and we started Vivid Bloom. So, and here I am today.
Cool. So you said that you were originally influenced by Nine Inch Nails. What other influences do you really cite, and how many of them were shoegaze bands?
So believe it or not, I didn't get into shoegaze until like recently, actually, like the last few years or so. I think I like a lot of music that's inspired by shoegaze or
Mhm.
shoegaze adjacent. I'm like, why? I remember when I was younger listening to like My Bloody Valentine and not quite getting it yet, but now that I'm really into guitar effects and layering and I've played music for a while, I can appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah.
But in general, I mean, I've always just been a fan of sort of like weirdo outsider culture. um I loved uh like the and Mary Chain and Ministry and this band Miranda Sex Garden when I was younger. It was like this melodic gothy kind of music.
Yeah, because I've heard the name. I thought they were like very irreverent punk from the name.
That's valid, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, having at least listened to See and Vivid Bloom, that makes enough sense.
Yeah, I have very eclectic music taste. I was just talking with a friend about this the other day, how when I was in high school, I loved like Mira. Do you know the singer-songwriter Mira? She was
No.
like more like folk indie, but she put out this record called Advisory Committee in like 2003 or something. And it was so heavy, like emotionally heavy without it being metal or your traditional heavy music. And I feel like when I was younger, I was really into music like that, where sure, Nine Inch Nails and Metallica and Mastodon, all those bands are actually like metallic heavy. But I love heavy music that is more just like raw and emotional and not necessarily your like stereotypical metal music.
Yeah, I feel like when I talk to like other metalheads about non-metal stuff they like, some of it does tend to like skew towards that. I think a lot of us are looking for emotional weight, and it's just up to you to find where it exists. or in my case, just listen to everyone else's recommendations.
Oh,
Yeah, because
definitely.
like as a teenager, that's when I got to My Bloody Valentines because someone on the Metal Archives like cited it as one of their favorite non-metal albums, and I kept getting them confused with Bullet for My Valentine, so I needed to get that settled.
That was the same case for me too, like,
Yes.
people would always be like, "My Bloody Valentine," and I'd be like, "What?" Like, "No, I'm not gonna like that."
I know. I think I wrote them off for at least a couple years because of that. And then like I there was a time, especially like 2019 into the pandemic, I had Love Lists on repeat. My year-end lists were so skewed. It was good music for then.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, it's funny too. I have that experience when I'm trying to explain what shoegaze is to people who don't know,
Yeah.
because that will come up. They'll be like, "Oh, you play in a shoegaze band. What does that mean?" And I'll always say like, "Oh, well, early 90s indie rock that has a lot of textures and effects, like My Bloody Valentine." And people always confuse it with Bullet for My Valentine and then be like, "Oh yeah, like lots of like spiked hair and black and red," and I'm like, "No, 2 different things."
Yeah, just I usually skip My Bloody Valentine. Like I had to explain it to my dad, and I think I'm just like slow dive.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. They're also perfect.
Ugh, I love Slow Dive so much. They're
Yeah.
definitely my favorite shoegaze band, and I shamefully, I'll admit that I, have a Spotify account, but, I was apparently one of the point 0.5 percent of listeners this year or something, which
It's pretty
I
impressive
think
because they're popular. Like I'll sometimes get the 0.5% top 0.5% of listeners. It's like, well, that wasn't hard.
I know, that's the thing. I think, the numbers are very skewed, but I did listen to them on repeat quite a bunch this year just because, like, Souvlaki and, Just for a Day
Mhm.
are albums that I feel like I can just listen to anytime, anywhere, and I will love them no matter what.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe the main reason I got you on playing Boston Calling.
Oh, yeah.
Anything you can say about how that happened?
Yeah, well, I'll say yeah, it well, okay. So we released our debut EP
Mhm.
last December. It's called Out of Focus and it's 3 songs. I would say, okay, so we got a message a couple months ago that was just like, "Hey, keep an eye on your inbox. You might hear something from Boston Calling." And we were like, "Okay, cryptic." And I was like, "That's cool," and uh someone was like, "Yeah, I threw your hat in the ring and I've been jamming Out of Focus ever since it came out. So it's really competitive, but keep an eye on your inbox." And I was like, "That's awesome. Thank you so much." And then I just in my mind was like, "Yeah, that's cool and all. It's probably not going to happen though." And then we get another message on Instagram that was like, "Hi," from the booker that was like, "Hi, I sent you an email for Boston Calling." And we had been casually keeping an eye on our inbox and we didn't notice anything. So we checked our spam folder and the email was in our spam folder and it was like, "Please respond by 5 p.m. today." And we're like, "Oh my God, can you imagine if we missed it?"
It's 4:58.
Yeah, I was like, so always check your spam folder. But also, it was great that the booker followed up on Instagram because it's like nothing ends up in the spam folder, but then the most important thing did.
Yeah. So far my spam folder's just worthless. I'll get too much traction there. Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I guess they do have to keep a limit on it because like it is high demand enough. But I
Oh, yeah.
get but like that sounds really high stakes. I probably wouldn't be spelling things correctly and then get rejected for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting and we all are just so jazzed because it feels like such an honor to be invited and it's not like we were gunning for this position or anything. We were just living our lives,
Mhm.
existing, and then we got two really awesome messages and that is like such a huge accomplishment. Like we all are really proud of that.
Okay, so this is where Liz became an absolute fucking angel because we had like a good 20 minutes of stuff that I forgot to press record for. As a behind the scenes look, I usually record from two separate sources, both Zoom's record function and through my NVIDIA card. I did do the latter and forgot to do the former after Zoom crashed, as it tends to. A whole other story. That being said, Liz retold all the stories that I forgot to record and made it sound pretty natural. With some editing magic, the podcast is saved after all. But there was one story that was otherwise lost to time that I want to tell right here. We were talking about Providence's venues, and she recalled when C played a show at Alchemy opening for the dearly departed Sub Rosa. There are so many shows I'm kicking myself over missing, so we gotta add this one to rub salt in my gaping FOMO wound. Especially because we'll never get a Sub Rosa show again. I even looked up the Keening set list to see if Rebecca Vernon digs out her back catalog as a little wink and nod to the fans, but alas, no luck there yet. The funny anecdote was that Rebecca and bandmate Sarah Pendleton were interviewed before their set at Alchemy on the YouTube channel Max Metal Vids, and you can hear C playing in the background for part of it. I linked it in the description for this episode, and a kind user even timestamped it in the comments. Maybe we'd find it funnier than most would. All right, so prepare
Yeah,
your ground. You really liked it.
yeah, so Prepare the Ground was awesome. Um, and 2024 just had such a great community feel. There were a lot of local bands that we knew. So it had this really just small, friendly feel where we were just like, hey, we know each other. Oh, this is so awesome. And they did such a great job organizing the whole fest. It was put on by Vile Creature, if you know that band. They are such sweethearts and they're always doing amazing things. So that was just a total pleasure to be invited to that festival.
Yeah. What other bands of note did you play with? I wasn't really aware of them until this year.
Oh, let's see. Thorn played that fest
Hmm.
and I'm trying to remember. Ragana was there.
Oh, yeah, and you have the shirt on, or a
Yes,
shirt.
I'm a huge Ragana fan, and I thought it would be fitting to wear this shirt today because I basically listen to Death to America on repeat all day.
Okay, fair.
um, so yeah, Emma Ruth Rundle was there. We didn't play with them, but they were part of the fest.
Were they like the other day?
Just at a different venue because
Oh,
it's to Roadburn where it's like every venue in the city, well, not every, but a handful of venues in the city get taken over. So we played at the Garrison and Thorn played there. Uh, there was this awesome band whose name I can't remember. It was like Obra Sky or something like that. Witching played there. They're from
mhm.
Philly. They're awesome. So yeah, it was a great time. Lots of talented people. Body Void played. Trying to think who else. Yellow Eyes. That
Okay,
was
that's all. Just like Body Void and Yellow Eyes. Like for me, it's like, ooh, dream lineup, huh?
oh my god. And seeing 40 Watt Sun perform acoustic solo just oh my god, like I it was night 1 that we were there, and I wasn't expecting to just be, like, crying. I was getting the chills, I was I had goosebumps, I was crying, it was so moving, and it just that was to me like a life-changing performance, seeing that live. And then Emma Ruth Rundle played right after, and I was again just like, "Oh, man, I didn't know Prepare the Ground was gonna be so emotional." I mean, I should have known, um, but then, uh, the next day, Mike Scheidt played a solo set at the Garrison, and I was just leaning on the stage, 10 feet away from him, and Yob was one of my like, probably the most influential bands to my, um, guitar playing and uh my doom style or taste or whatever. I really love Yob so much, so it was really cool to see Mike Scheidt just do a solo set.
Right. That's actually at least we add something to that.
Yeah.
Um, and RPM Fest.
So, RPM Fest was awesome, we had well, I had never been to it before, but we rolled up and it was such a cool, like, Western Mass type vibe. They had, really well organized whole compound there, because it's basically just, like, in this big field, and they have their different stages, they have, the merch tent, bar tents, and all of these really awesome artist vendors. And oh my god, and so much good food too. They had so many good food vendors there as well. Um, so I was really impressed by the organization and just the hospitality. Like, they had this whole tent for the artists, and they had lots of free food, and they wanted to keep their waste down, so they had like composting and gave us all um, plastic water bottles with like RPM Fest on there. They offered merch discounts for the artist as well if you wanted like an RPM t-shirt. So, yeah, I would say like RPM was definitely one of the top experiences for like hospitality, especially playing a festival. It was awesome. And yeah, so many cool artist vendors there too. Like a lot of awesome alternative type things. There was this one guy who was selling like old tech, like old VHSs and things like that. Lots of horror movie art, which we're all fans of. So yeah, and then the highlight, well, okay, a couple highlights actually. Seeing Castle Rat headline
Oh,
was
headlining.
yeah, they played RPM Fest and they were one of the headliners. And it was like maybe they were headlining. Maybe I'm making that up. They played later in the night, which
Okay. Because,
believe they.
like, the only I'm familiar with Castle Rat. I almost saw them live, but, it was that day at the Middle East where they booked Greenlung and Castle Rat and Amon Ra and Primitive Man on the same night, and I made the other choice.
Yeah, yeah.
They, like yeah,
That's a tough choice.
they had a double billing. Like,
And
you
you're
could like, you get both tickets, like, "Oh, we're starting the show early," and, like, you could sacrificing Blackwater Holy Light and see Castle Rat, and I said, "Seems like a lot of work."
yeah, and
But, like,
sometimes
I do like
wanna
their music. Um, the only festival I was familiar with them playing at was, Desert Fest NYC because I was sad to miss it, and also that's where all the bands from that night in the Middle East were coming from. Um,
Mhm.
but they did not have top billing, and I'm very happy for the success Castle Rat has. They're not getting top billing at bigger festivals.
Mm.
But so here that they headlined or at least had a nice, evening slot at RPM Fest that warms my heart. They are a really good band.
Yeah, they were so good live too, and they put on such a great show. It seemed almost like a Gwar show, with all the
Yeah.
theatrics.
Yeah, but you don't come out, damp.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
because I saw Guar this year. It was my first time. I figured, like, I have to it's a metalhead rite of passage. I was
Yes.
soaked.
Did you wear all white?
No, that was my first mistake.
I
Like
have some funny Gwar stories if you want to hear them.
we'll put a pin in that.
Okay, all right, we'll get to those later. But yeah, Castle Rat, they were just such amazing performers, and yeah, I was stoked on their live show. And the other highlight of RPM Fest was watching Witching, the band from Philly, and I was really into their set, and I look over and the pit's going crazy, and there's just like blow up dolls flying everywhere. And there's this guy in a 1970s Grimace costume just moshing and swirling around. And it just brought everyone so much joy to see Grimace there, and it was slightly terrifying too. Um, and then later on, we were all just like, walking around, checking out the grounds, seeing what else was there. And we stumbled upon Grimace's tent. There was this weird painting of him on the outside with like with boobs. So we were like, what's going on here? We were like, is this Grimace's tent? And then Grimace must have heard us and he just like emerged out of the tent and started like frolicking around. And I got a little video of it and it was just like the highlight of my weekend.
Oh god.
Really funny. Like whoever.
I'm not surprised by costumes in pits anymore because like you see it at some shows. It's the tip of the Grimace painting with boobs. Like that like that's a
Very
detail you're not gonna see anywhere but a fest like RPM Fest, because otherwise you're
exactly.
not camping. Like you
Exactly.
take the costume off in the bathroom and you take the train home and feel a little awkward.
Yeah, I was really impressed by Grimace's just like energy and endurance. This person was like frolicking around, doing like just moshing. Had so much energy, and it was also like 90 degrees out and they were in this like woolen costume. So
Yeah,
I
it's the woolen part that like, because at first I was thinking like all those people that do like inflatable costumes and like no
yeah.
hate, they're light.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna be moshing, that's probably the way to go. But no, that like then I was thinking, I was like, no, what do you mean 70s? You probably do mean 70s.
Yeah, it was like it just looks like a carpet just
Yeah.
draped.
I was just thinking like full corduroy.
Ugh, yeah, pretty much.
Well, C got booked for an evening of Dark Arts 4 in Providence. Um, to be fair, I actually do have an interview planned with Abaddon Booking, so I can just ask him about it. I can ask him about all the logistics and all the past events, but how do you feel about it?
Oh, I'm really excited. Yeah, we're playing with Morn, Lesser Glow, Wormwood.
Mhm.
They're all friends of ours, so that's exciting.
Yeah, it seems like a very doom heavy lineup this year, which is
Yeah.
funny because last year's it was like all black metal in 1476.
Mhm.
And like
It's good.
it was a great show. It was like I went to a lot of shows last year and I'm still like yeah, that AS220 show really rocked. Because it's not it's just the setting. Like, have you ever been to a show at AS220?
I haven't.
So at least in the space they held this event in, it's in like a black box theater. So it's really dark and moody. And that's like half the appeal.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And you get like a lot of like art and poetry benders and stuff like that. So it's a little more eclectic than just having five bands on a bill. And I like that. It makes sense for AS220 because I told my brother I'm going to a concert there and he's like, there? Because it's like an arts and performance space, not necessarily. It's kind of a music venue. They get some shows, but it's not really the main use for it.
Hmm.
Like I think he was thinking about like all the dance stuff and seminars and voguing.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just like
So,
like great place, very different vibes than than what usually has.
yeah, where for a show, if it's not properly run, it could just end up being like really awkward or
Yeah, but I think it works there, at least in that like black box thing. Like the stage was a good it had a good balance of, like, being still moody, but I could still get decent photos.
Oh, yeah, that's
Like, the
important.
yeah, occasionally yeah, sometimes it's easy for a band to overdo the dark lighting.
Yeah, and then, yeah, you see the photos the next day and you're just like,
Yeah.
"Oh," or you're like, "How did I even see my fretboard?"
Yeah, and, yeah, I was talking from the perspective of a normal music goer, I didn't even think about you guys. Maybe I just assumed that at some point you can blindly do it, kind of like how, like, a violinist doesn't have markings on their fretboard.
I think if you're a good enough musician, probably. That is not me.
Okay,
I need
that's
a
fair.
certain amount of white light, not a lot, but just enough to illuminate the fretboard. But I have heard that AS220 is an amazing venue, and I'm surprised I haven't been there yet because it also is a print shop too, right?
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty
I think
sure
I
they
did know that in the back of my head, but I had, like, mostly just been looking at their events calendar because 'cause I'm like, "What if I missed something?"
yeah,
And, like,
yeah.
I try to keep up with shows in Providence, going there by train is difficult, but I have guaranteed lodging with my brother because he lives there.
Oh,
I'm gonna try to get him to Evening of Dark Arts this year because he likes doom metal. Like,
oh, yeah, that'll be
yeah,
perfect for
like, I tried to make him a metalhead like me, and all that really stuck with him was like, "I love Electric Wizard."
I
We saw them live in 2019 together. It was, like, one of the highlights of our brother-sister relationship.
Aw, was that at the Royale?
It was at the Palladium, actually.
Oh,
I think, like,
cool.
might have been upstairs.
Oh,
I
that's
forget
a
which part of the Palladium it
really
was,
nice.
but I think, like, I the 2 things I remember from that show is that 1 was really good, and 2, it proved that Worcester crowds are made of something else because 'cause they'll mosh to anything, and, like, they closed the show with Funeralopolis, and, like, when the song picked up, the crowd's just, like, ready to go.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that
They
song
had
gets
spent the
everybody
whole
turned up.
time pent up thinking, like, probably itching to mosh because like, I think, like, the most some of the most intense crowds I've ever witnessed, it's all been Worcester. It's all been,
Oh.
like, for stuff that disproportionately does not deserve it.
Hey, that's cool, though, I mean, usually that happens in the places where there's not much going on.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Um,
but
I have some fun Electric Wizard stories.
ooh, do tell.
Wanna hear them. So I saw them at Maryland Death Fest 2012,
Oh, I
and
want to go to I remember, like, I was 18 back then, I thought, "This is gonna be my, graduation gift to myself." Like, I'm gonna go to Maryland Death Fest. I didn't go to Maryland Death Fest.
well, it
It's a lot to plan that kind of thing.
yeah,
But just like Electric
I
Wizard's never gonna come back. That was my thought.
yeah, I mean, that's a valid thought, and luckily they did,
Yeah.
because yeah, I thought the same thing, and that was part of the incentive to go. I mean, it was such a good Doom lineup that year. I'm pretty sure it was, them, Saint Vitus, Yob, Cough, Uncle Acid, and Church of Misery, I
A
remember.
very doom heavy lineup for Maryland Death Fest. Like,
Yes.
I know they're not, like, strictly death metal anymore. Like,
But they split, so there was, like, Maryland Death Fest, and it was Doomy that one year, but then it became Maryland Death Fest and Maryland Doom Fest.
oh, I didn't know they were related.
I don't know if
I
they
thought
are.
they just independently, arose.
They could've. I don't really know anything else about it, but I kept tabs on the lineups because I was really into the Doomfest lineup, and
Mhm.
then I was like, "Oh, Maryland Doomfest, I guess they're doing this thing, so Death Fest will stay Death Fest with, like, death metal and crust and whatever."
Yeah.
But during that year, it was cool because right before Electric Wizard was supposed to play, a storm picked up and the wind was whipping around. And I swear a lightning bolt like crashed and like struck the top of the stage right before they went on. And then they just opened up with like down, 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 and everyone just went wild. It was so epic, and I was like, "Yeah." Uh, that was so cool to see. And then I saw them at the Royale after they put out, the next record. God, I don't even remember what year it was, 2018 or something, 2017 maybe. And it was cool, but nothing could beat the, like, powered by
Yeah.
lightning version of Electric Wizard.
I know you mentioned also being a visual artist. I looked at your Metal Archives page just to check.
Yes,
Because
so
yeah, just because that's like where most of your entries are. You've done album art for a lot of bands.
oh, interesting. I didn't know that that was on there.
I guess so. I don't know.
Well,
I wasn't. I was just trying to do my due diligence as a journalist.
I'm very intrigued by Metal Archives contributors. Like,
Yeah, like who's looking for this?
yeah, like who is scouring the internet? I think I saw the person who added me was maybe from Sweden or something.
Huh.
Uh, and then also the
And like with
photo.
a picture.
Yeah, the photo that's on there is, like, the worst photo of me ever, and it was, in 2014 when C was recording our demos in our practice space, and my SG had just fallen face first and the headstock broke, so I was really upset, and I, like, had a quick cry and then, borrowed Mike's PRS and was playing it to record my tracks, and in that picture, I'm just like, "Ugh." And
I
I'm
thought it
like,
was just like it's old. Like
"It is
you
old," but I'm
are.
like, "Who found this picture?" They did a
Yeah,
deep.
because like I'm not a Metal Archives contributor anymore. Like when I was in high school, I'm like, yeah, I can be a total power user on this site. And then I realized like that's the saddest accomplishment you can have.
Think so. I mean, I think it's contributing to the subculture in
But yeah,
some.
now I feel like once they introduced artist pages, like for some reason I assumed a lot of it was like if it's detailed then you probably put it in yourself. If it's not detailed, it was someone who like has a script for it. Like they
Oh,
just plug in like name was on this album, boom. I don't think there's actually a script for it, but like, you can just fill in the most basic stuff and get your points and all that. Yeah, but like when they're finding like all the stuff that you designed and your worst picture. Yeah, but
I
you had a
mean,
lot of credits. I know that you've done art for Glacier. It's really good. Um, I think especially for a distant violent shudder, I think it's part of the whole package. Like it's not. I don't own the album physically right now, but like if there is something I would like to like have on display, it would be the vinyl cover of that, or like to pull it out of my cassette bag, and be like, ooh,
aw, thank you, that's so nice.
yeah. No, I thought it kind of reminds me of Godspeed You Black Emperor art, but in color somehow, which is not something they do.
Yeah, Glacier, that was one of their points. They were like, "We want to introduce color because all of our album covers are black and white or really subdued colors." And they basically just gave me the direction of what the concept of the album was about and some things that they were inspired by. The album was sort of loosely inspired by some things they were reading about the Dust Bowl and parallels with climate change and sort of like normalization of natural disasters that's happening
Yeah,
now.
yeah, because I was wondering that. It's not like there are lyrics to analyze. You just kind of
Yeah,
have to go off song titles and ask yourself what reminds you of.
exactly. And obviously they wrote that record during the pandemic years.
Mhm.
So There was a lot of darkness there, a lot of isolation. And so, yeah, we just had a Zoom meeting and they gave me some direction with that. And they basically wanted it to feel apocalyptic. So I found some images and did some clever image editing to try to create
Hmm.
that.
So, what do you say like your main medium is for designing stuff?
At this point, I design a lot just with Photoshop and Illustrator. Uh, I use a lot of digital processes. I'm trained as a traditional artist,
Oh,
and
cool.
I was trained mostly in drawing and printmaking. So some of my earlier album covers and poster designs, I was drawing and T-shirt designs. I was drawing everything by hand with a pen, and I was really inspired by like John Dyer Baisley from Baroness,
Yeah.
and his album covers and like Jay Bannon. I always wanted to be sort of like a metal artist slash musician. Um, but in the early years, I was spending, upwards of 20 hours on a technical pen drawing to then turn into a t-shirt design and like digitize it. And that kind of model, while it was like interesting for a while, it wasn't sustainable.
Do you do all the little dots like John Dyer Baisley does? Oh.
Crippling. Yep. So I was doing that for several years, and I think at my peak stippling, I cranked out a piece for an art show in a week with a Micron 005 pen, which is the smallest nib that I had. And I probably spent like 25 hours in 1 week working on this thing, and part of my thumb went numb from the like repetitive motion. So after that, I was like, yeah, I think I should branch out and sort of like digitize my process more. So nowadays I do a lot more photo editing and photo manipulation than I do like illustration by hand.
Mhm.
But I would say the last complex illustration I did for band merchandise was the Glacier Riff Lord t-shirt.
Yeah, what other bands have you worked with art-wise that you find worth commenting on?
A lot of my own bands,
Okay, fair.
just out of necessity, I guess, DIY. Uh, Man, you might know my roster better than I do.
No, I took a quick look and I don't think I didn't memorize anything.
I did an album cover for The Scimitar, which was members of Black Pyramid. Do you know
Ooh.
Daniel Shepard? He um he was in Black Pyramid for a while, and he was in this other band Test Me after that. And now he's in Kind, the like stoner rock
Mhm.
psych band.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
only recently discovered Black Pyramid, which is a shame because like a Western Mass stoner doom band, like not only should I have known about that earlier, my brother should have told me. Should have been
yep,
like,
we're
these
your
guys
brother.
came up. They're neighbors. Not
Yeah.
really. They're still like an hour away from me, but
Yeah, they've been around for a while. They're like the um Western Mass Doom legends.
hmm no, I respect them 100%, and their live show's pretty good.
Yeah, they're awesome.
They just keep popping up in the best places. Although I will say it was really funny like reading year end like people's like personal metal year end lists and seeing Massachusetts bands on there, people saying like, yeah, my favorite albums this year are from Black Pyramid and Change to the Bottom of the Ocean. I think one person did say Glacier.
Awesome.
I think Glacier's release is like my number 11 or something. So, you know, should still be proud of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no shortage of talented people in Massachusetts, and especially the sort of legacy of Converge and hardcore here. Converge,
Yeah.
Cave In. There are so many amazing bands that sprout from Massachusetts.
Yeah, I thought it was like all hardcore and metalcore, maybe because of Converge, but also like Unearth, Shadows Fall, Killswitch Engage, uh, you name it. I didn't like. Oh, I feel I feel stupid for not like looking into like Massachusetts doom metal or death metal or all we have so much good stuff to discover, and
Yeah.
I'm very I'm very glad that there are people who want that to be discovered.
Oh, definitely.
I'm glad that RPM Fest exists. Um, Summer Gloom is very obvious.
Love Summer Bloom.
Yeah, looking forward that yeah, the back-to-back weekends of that and RPM Fest. I'm gonna be dead.
Oh yeah, they're actually going to be closer together.
Yeah, because like last year I know it was back to back. And like I
Oh,
wanted a festival and I'm like, the one I can take a train to.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good start at least.
Oh, that my bandmate Steve from
Hmm.
C books Summer Bloom.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, you know.
I've talked to him about it. It's cool. Once again, I'd like to thank Liz for her time with me. Catch her playing with Glacier at O'Brien's Pub on January 31st, and the Alanis Morissette cover band 10,000 Spoons at Deep Cuts on February 14th. And we've talked enough about Boston Calling, but Vivid Bloom is also opening for Freeze Pop at the Middle East on February 15th. I'm Theo Morgan, and I'll be somewhere at one of those at least. You know how to find me, always up front taking photos and peeking out from behind my janky bangs. I've got to do something with those. Yeah, so it was great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was really fun.
And any closing thoughts?
Stay strong, support each other, keep making art and music to keep yourself sane and to build community.
And find small festivals.
Yes, play small shows and fests
Yeah.
and local music.